When was that first time you finally saw God?
Driving reckless, and I rolled over a car 7 times. And I remember waking up in the hospital and going, okay, I am not the biggest thing in the universe. And God, if you're out there, what do you have? Pretty much every mistake you can make, I did over and over again. I didn't trust God. I didn't trust my wife. My way failed 99% of the time. When you're going down the wrong road, God will do a lot of things to stop you. This church has exploded. This church grows in the summertime when everybody leaves church for the summer.
What would you tell your younger self?
Get over yourself. I'm kind of in a hurry.
Yep.
I was climbing down and turning towards the back of the truck at the same time. I stepped into a hole, so it twisted. I've got 3 tears in there, a severe bone bruise, and some other good stuff. And we're just yet to find a surgeon who will commit to.
Really?
Yeah. I did that on the 24th of November.
Holy
I
cow.
reported it to work on the 10th of December.
Okay.
And I've been since.
Waiting.
I see doctors every week, and
Nobody.
they're so I had the MRI,
Yeah.
and then they sent me to a guy to read the MRI.
Okay.
And he walked in the room going, dude, you need surgery. And he showed me the pictures. This is where you need it. This is written down right here. We're going to go across the hall. We're going to see the surgeon. See what maybe we can get you in next week. I'm like, sweet. Let's
go.
get this done.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm like, what? I'm like, how could he be so adamant? And well, I mean, there's some stuff, but I don't know. Let's give it 6 weeks and see.
6 weeks?
I'm like, that is literally what I'm trying not to do.
Yeah.
Right now. So we got a second opinion. That guy was like, nope, nothing torn, nothing broken. You need a cortisone shot. How is this possible? I said, so who do you recommend? He's like, well, come back here tomorrow, see our doctor. He'll do the shot. I come back. Yeah. He walks in the door and he's shaking his head. He says, don't punch me. You need surgery. I'm like, hey, is the janitor around? He's like, what? I'm like, I'd really like him to weigh in on this too. Everybody else has an opinion. Why don't we get his? So, yeah, that's where we're at. I got a cortisone shot last Tuesday. It's done nothing so far. I see a doctor on Monday, and if I see that doctor and nothing has changed, he's going to send me back to the guy that said I need it and see if he'll do it.
That's interesting.
And if it's anything like the surgery that Emily had, I will be in a straight cast for 8 to 12 weeks.
Holy cow. And
then severe PT after that because I will have lost all of my muscle mass in that leg. So, yeah, it's been fun. My entire winter this is when I make my money. I mean, I work there year round, but this is when we make our real money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that's gone. Plus, I can't do anything fun. And if I have surgery, then I was freaking out when they said I was going to have surgery because it's like, okay, we're going right into the heart of winter.
Yeah.
My wife's going to have to take care of all of the shoveling. And we have a pretty big deck. She's got to go out there and clean the vehicles off.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, we feed deer. Once you start, you can't just stop. So now she's going to have to go out back and do that. Yeah. So it's been a good time.
Yo, that does not seem like a great time. Have you had previous experience like this?
So I had shoulder surgery a year and a half ago, but that was like, I went in, I had an MRI, and they're like, yep, you got this wrong, and then this is when you're going to have. The hardest part about that was just waiting for a date to get it done.
Yeah.
But there was no question whatsoever. We're doing this. And it was, I think I went out in the end of February. They finally did the surgery in July.
Holy cow.
But but they knew it. They were just that busy.
Wow. Yeah. I've got more questions, but I'm going to introduce everyone here. Brian Ellis. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the So What's the Point podcast. Very glad you could take some time out of your day, come and just have a conversation with us. We were just talking about this. So shoulder and now knee, right?
Yeah.
Those are 2 really bad joints.
Yes. And they're both on the same side of the body.
To mess up.
Yep.
What was the shoulder injury?
Rotator cuff tear,
Okay.
plus some bone spurs that needed cleaning up.
I don't know too much about that stuff. Was that from like prolonged use? Is that like an injury that slowly built up over time?
Well, bone spurs were something that accumulate over time.
Okay.
The rotator cuff is from pulling the hose from my job from the propane truck. So constant repetition of that, and probably pulling on it a few times incorrectly. That's how you hurt a rotator cuff, is you do something
Yeah.
incorrectly. So,
Okay.
but it was work.
Interesting. I didn't know. How heavy is that hose?
It's not so much the weight of the hose as it is. I mean, we could pull out 150 feet around. Figure a 3-inch rubber hose.
Yeah.
That's pretty stiff. And
Yeah.
you pull it around 290-degree turns of a house. They don't drag very easily.
Hmm.
So it can be heavy. You get it out there 150 feet. It's pretty heavy towards the end.
Huh. That is interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. It makes sense now. I actually sit down and think about it. But yeah, that's very cool. Now, I want to get a little bit of your backstory, kind of where you grew up, what that environment was like for people who might not know you yet.
Well, I'm from Maine. I'm from over the hill. From Dixfield. Grew up there. Never. I think I left the state of Maine once
Okay.
before I graduated high school. Went to New Hampshire one time when I was a little kid. I think that was the only time I've ever been out of the state.
Hmm.
And then I joined the Army when I graduated from high school.
Hmm.
And I moved. Then I went down south, and that was a big change.
What is the difference between Maine, where you grew up, and when you grew up, compared to now?
Probably the biggest one that I see. I grew up in a logging family.
Okay.
My entire clan, my father's whole entire clan, my mother's father, they were all loggers in some form. They were either actual loggers or they were the truckers, all of them. And now that industry is kind of gone by the wayside. People think Maine is still a big logging state, but it's, we have a lot bigger machines that do the work now.
Yeah.
We don't have guys out there with chainsaws as much. And that did start to affect my family, the changeover as I got older.
Yeah.
And my mother refused to let me touch a chainsaw before I left the house. She did not want me a part of it. All my uncles have had back surgeries, shoulder surgeries. It's a hard life. That's probably the biggest thing I think that I've seen, as far as Maine. And we're a heck of a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
People wise, we have a lot more people than we did when I was younger.
Yeah, which, speaking on that, was there much going on event-wise, or was there many maybe small businesses around at that point, or not really at that? Yeah.
Well, back then, I mean, up in the Dixfield, Rumford area, I mean, it was all small business.
Okay.
You didn't have Walmart. I think, when I was a kid, it was probably Zayres or Ames or something like that was your Walmart. But it wasn't. They weren't massive like today's Walmarts are. But everything else was small mom and pop businesses. So it was better. You had a lot more personal service back then.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we definitely seem to be moving away with, from, I should say. I mean, that's just part of
Right. Well, now everything's Amazon. So
yeah,
because you can get it in 2 days and
all the technology and how fast we're moving now. What was your relationship with your family? I mean, you mentioned a little bit about that. I just want to elaborate a little bit on it.
well, I had a good relationship. I have a sister, a younger sister. I come from a family that didn't divorce. So it was kind of rare. My parents stayed together until they were together until the spring when my mom passed away. 56 years they were together.
Wow.
That's a long time
Yeah.
to be with somebody longer than you. They started together when they were 17 and 16.
Wow, that's young.
So I had a great relationship with my family, but it wasn't Christian based for me. So
that's something I wanted to lead into was, did you grow up in that Christian base? Did you ever go to a church? Let's just say for the first 17 years.
No, with my family, we never went to church. They believe in God.
Yeah.
The end. It was an awakening when I found God, because I had just never been faced with that type of relationship, and it wasn't spoken of. in my house. Not negatively, but it just wasn't spoken about.
Was there anyone that you maybe bumped into on a regular basis that was a Christ follower?
I had one friend from probably the 6th grade on. Her family was very religious, and I knew it.
Yeah.
So I kind of tried to behave myself a little bit around her, but other than that, despite the fact there's a church on every corner around the state,
Yeah.
it just wasn't a part of my life then.
That's a great point. There's a lot of churches.
There is. This community right here is just one on every corner.
But there's not a lot of people in each one. I was reading something the other day. It was that Maine is considered an untouched state for Christianity when you look at the amount of churches per actual believers, especially when you're comparing to what they call the Bible Belt in the south of the U.S. Has that always been the case from when you were growing up to now?
The smaller churches were fuller.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I mean, I always knew where the churches were, and we didn't ride our bikes through the parking lots on Sunday, so because they were busier. On Sundays now, you drive by a lot of these beautiful churches, and there's 6 cars in the parking lot, but they're still doing their thing.
So you mentioned the military.
Yes.
Joined. What age were you?
18.
18. Why did you join, and what was that mindset that kind of led you to join?
That's easy. When I graduated, I wanted to be a Maine State Trooper.
Okay.
You had to be 21 at the time to do that. And the Army had a 2-year enlistment program. And it ended up being 2 years, 10 months. And so I thought about it.
Yep.
I needed to stay out of trouble. I wasn't going to college. So that offered me what I needed. I went and talked to the state police. They encouraged me not to go into the military in the military police.
Okay.
They said, go into the infantry, learn your basic skills of weapons, how to handle yourself, and come see us when you turn 21. So that's what I did. I got sidetracked. See, my mom agreed to let me go, even though I was 18, because we hadn't been in a war since Vietnam.
Sure.
When I graduated basic training, we shipped directly to Saudi Arabia for a Desert Storm. I got 2 days to come home at Christmas, see my family, and that was when it started for my mom. She didn't ever left the house and was stuck in front of the TV watching, see if there was any news whatsoever of it. So yeah, I ended up over there 3 times.
Wow.
And I loved every bit of it. Actually, ironically, both times I was supposed to get out of the Army because my time was up, I was over there. So they were like, well, we're either going to extend you until we get back or you re-enlist. So I re-enlisted the first time for the infantry again. Then I went back to Iraq again. When I got ready the 3rd time to re-enlist, I really wanted to be a medic.
Okay.
But they had no openings at the time. But I wanted to change, so I ended up going to the MPs anyway. And I did not like that. So the base that I was on was closing, and they offered me an early out. So about 5.5 years into it, I got out. And I never became a Maine State police officer.
It's funny how sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it was a wild ride, but I didn't end up going
to where you wanted to.
No.
You said MPs. So for people who don't know, what is that? And then you said it wasn't the best experience. Why was that?
MPs is military police.
Yep.
What I didn't like was when I was in the infantry, it's a completely different army.
Okay.
That sounds weird to people who aren't in the military, but it is. It's, if any military base you go to that has an infantry battalion, they're far away from everybody else. They're just different. Everything is treated different. Everything is brotherly. When you go into the military police corps, it's more of a legalistic.
Mm.
From the 3 times I went to Iraq, I literally went from a unit of shoot first, ask later to don't ever touch your weapon when I joined the military police. And that's a hard transition for guys to do.
Mm.
The other aspect that I really didn't like, and it kept me out of going into seeing any type of police work, was domestic cases.
Okay.
After I did a few of those, I had no interest in doing that anymore.
Mm.
Scary situations. A wife would call because the husband was not treating her well. We'd get there, would do what she asked us to do, and then she'd turn around and attack us.
Mm.
So it was a lose-lose situation. Understood it, but it was just not something I wanted to do. And it cleared me of wanting to be any form of police officer.
Mm.
All the respect in the world for those guys, not what I wanted to do.
Mm. As being part of the military police, what is kind of the day-to-day for people in that service?
It depends. Where I was in the military police short term. So
Okay.
I was in the last, it was the last Army facility that housed special weapons. They were igloo style places. And now remember, this is way before you were born. Back in the early 90s now, we still had, when we had special weapons coming in, they were brought in by a convoy of blacked out SUVs.
Hmm.
Brought in, they were put into the storage facility.
Yep.
And they were guarded until someone came and picked them up.
Hmm.
That was on an installation out in the middle of the desert in California. Not really, high energy police work. They actually didn't even handle the police work on the base because it was a small base. Off from that facility, it would have been similar to what our local PD
Okay.
do, day-to-day traffic.
Okay.
Drunken disorderlies, just typical police work stuff.
Mm.
I didn't deal with that very much because I was actually in the military police for probably like 10 months.
What did you end up doing right after getting out?
Before I left the infantry, I had some friends from Texas, older gentleman, and his wife took me under their wing. I did a lot of time with them. When we were stateside, I spent a lot of time with them. And he got out before I did. He retired before I did. And I had some other friends that got out roughly the same time or a little bit earlier than I did. So I got out in California, traveled up to Colorado for a while, down to Kansas for a while, so lived in Texas for about 6 months, just looking for something.
Yeah.
And then maybe a year after I got out, my sister lived in Richmond, Virginia. Okay. And I had no intentions of coming back to Maine, none whatsoever. Once I left, I was done. I'm not coming back. My mom didn't like that. My parents uprooted themselves and moved to Richmond under the agreement that I would move to Virginia. Before I even got there, my dad basically had an anxiety attack because he had never been out of the state of Maine.
Oh, wow.
So to move to Richmond, Virginia, of all places, was culture shock, to say the least, for him. So they moved back. Thankfully, they didn't sell their house in the time period that they were gone. I still moved to Virginia. I had a cousin who lived in Lynchburg, right around Liberty. Okay. So I went there. Yep. And a couple of various jobs, odd jobs. And that's where I met Emily.
People don't know who's Emily.
Emily is my wife of 28 years.
Wow.
I met her on her graduation time. She graduated from Liberty University. She was working at a local Kroger down there.
Okay.
And I saw her, and I was, it was all over the first time I saw her. She still gives me a hard time, but I told her the night we met, I told her I was going to marry her. 28 years later, I was right. So, but she moved back to Maine. She was headed back to Maine, and I was like, well, here we are. And ever since we got back, she's been wanting to go back down south. I'm like, nope, sorry. You moved me back here. Now I live outdoors. Yeah. I'm not going down south. Not happening. I feel bad and I apologize, but we're not going.
When was that first time you finally saw God, felt God? And then could you describe that moment? Maybe it was a specific moment.
2 answers to that.
Okay.
When I was in Desert Storm, the
Mhm.
first Iraq War, I would probably consider myself an atheist at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a bunch of my friends that were standing around, and you had Native American, some strong Catholics, yeah,
Mm.
just about everybody.
Yeah.
And they were standing around and they were praying, and I would mock them so bad.
Mm.
I'm like, look around, look where we are. How
Yeah.
could you possibly believe that? When I was out in California, I was coming back from Reno one night, young, driving reckless,
Mm.
and I rolled over a car 7 times at 130 plus miles an hour
Whoa.
and walked away from it. I had 6 stitches in my nose and pretty good bruise here from my seatbelt. And I remember waking up in the hospital and going, okay,
Mm.
I am not the biggest thing in the universe. The world does not revolve around me.
Mm.
And God, if you're out there, what do you have?
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. That was in September. Actually, it was September 17th. I remember because it was my dad's birthday. When I was out of the Army in November,
Mhm.
and then I met Emily in May. But when I moved to Virginia, so I bounced around a little bit. When I moved to Virginia, my cousin, I stayed with him for a while. His wife her family was huge in the church, so they got me in Southern Baptist Church. My first experience with church, very overwhelming.
Okay.
Not the corner church in Maine. I think the first one I was taken to was 3,000.
That's big.
That's big for a backwoods boy who's never been to church ever.
Yeah.
When they had the call to the altar, and half of the audience gets up and goes, and it's like, wow. Um,
Mm.
I started reading the Bible. I talked to his wife a lot, just asking questions. And then when I met Emily, it was, I had to straighten out. Um, I married into a family. I believe she has 4 or 5 uncles that are pastors.
Wow.
So I married into the family.
Mm.
So there was, I had to be saved. I had to be baptized. I had to go through a discipleship.
Mm.
So I did that with Pastor Church down in Lewiston Baptist Church.
Mm. Okay.
He did that with me, and it was an eye opener.
Mm.
When he did my baptism,
Yep.
we had a dunk tank there at the church. Emily was reading my testimony to the church, and I don't get up in front of people and speak very well, so she was reading my testimony. And he's looking at me. He's like, "What is your problem?" We're in the tank at this point. He's like, "What's the matter with you?" And I says, "Well, it's taken me a really long time to get here."
Mm.
He's like, "Yeah." I said, "What if God just decides to hold me down there as kind of a, you know, how long you took you this long to get here?" So, and he just laughed. He's like, "No, that's not how this works." I'm a big guy. I've always been a big guy. When he lowered me into the tank, he couldn't get me back up. So you could see where that went. Yeah, that
Oh
went south in a
man.
hurry. So we laugh about it every time I see him. It's like he's like, yeah, okay. He's like, I learned after that one to brace people because I just gave myself to him. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't,
So you mentioned 3 things. You need to be saved, baptized, and then discipleship.
yes,
For people listening who aren't Christ followers yet, maybe they're not super prolific, for a fancy word for that, in the Christian faith, discipleship, in the context you're talking about, what did that mean?
I want to say like a 8-week
Okay.
study with a pastor. He gave me, some worksheets, learning about faith and prayer, and I would have to do my own studying, and then we would meet once a week, and he would quiz me on them and make sure I was doing my reading, see what I was learning. Um, and I had to, that was actually for for Pastor Church to marry us in his church. I had to go through that. That wasn't one of Emily's stipulations. That was the church's stipulation.
Mhm.
But it was basic 101 faith, prayer, baptism, what those meant, why they were important.
I'm not so familiar with like a set of rules that a church puts out, but I have to come to the conclusion that as you're coming to faith, you might have had some questions about why exactly that you did certain things. Was there anything that really stood out that you're like, I believe this, but I'm not so sure about this thing on the side that this church is having me do?
Honestly, just I probably have more of those moments now because
Mm.
I was so new to faith then
Mm.
that I was just gobbling up everything they would give me,
Okay.
everything they asked. It wasn't a shock to me because I didn't know. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't know any better, but I didn't have anything to gauge it on. And we weren't members of that church. We went every Sunday to church. We were members of it. And Pastor Church knew I was new to faith. So that was why he put me through the discipleship. I would say at the beginning, I didn't really question anything just because at that church, I didn't question anything because I believed in him.
Yeah.
And I really had nothing to gauge it off of. My horrible, sinful life before that is all I had to gauge it off from. So there wasn't anything. There were churches afterwards that I questioned some things, but not that one. Not to do that discipleship, if that's what you're asking.
Sure. Yeah. So you jumped around to a few different churches.
We tried a couple in Auburn. One we went to the most, it was very old school.
Yeah.
Sunday finest, old hymns, very old school church. Loved all the people in there. Sometimes I questioned whether we were learning by the Bible or the pastor's word. And so we didn't, there was a couple of times where I was like, eh. And then there was one in particular day I can remember, and I was like, yeah, we're done. I'm done at this church. And then we moved to Oxford Hills. We lived in Auburn at the time.
Okay.
We moved to Oxford and we went to South Paris Baptist. And that's where I met your dad. He was everything I was looking for in a pastor, except the worship was still old hymnals. But, at the time I didn't know any better. That's all I knew. I wasn't experienced with the Mossbrook worship. So, and I really connected with Pastor Tim very well. And I loved that church to start with. The people over there were great.
What were maybe some problems or some struggles, some issues you had in your marriage as you became a Christ follower?
So I didn't learn this until roughly 5 years ago. Most of my issues at the beginning of our marriage were anger. A lot of it was PTSD related. I didn't know that until about 5 years ago. So I didn't have a lot of patience. I was not a good manly leader of the household. I didn't trust my partner as much as I should. So coming from my lifestyle to that was hard. Pretty much every mistake you can make, I did over and over again because I didn't trust. I didn't trust God. I didn't trust my wife. When things became challenging, I had an approach to attack a problem, and she had an approach, usually a godly way. Mine was not. So that was a challenge.
What is something you could tell another person listening to this who's in a similar situation? Maybe a piece of advice or something that kind of was a breakthrough for you in that moment or in those moments.
My way failed 99% of the time. So there's a reason for that. When you're going down the wrong road, God will do a lot of things to stop you. And he shows you little side ramps. And he's faithful to when you avoid the first one. Oh, here's another one. Here's an escape. Use it. And I did. I was stubborn. Um, so I didn't, I would say if every attempt you're making is not working, stop. Stop trying. Look to your partner and pray and say, okay, I'm not doing this right. How do you show me the way that I need to go? That was hard for, I mean, again, my wife had grew up in that. I did not. I was trained
Yeah.
to take care of myself. So looking to God, to me, looking to God meant I was failing and I needed you to deal with this.
Mm.
I didn't like taking things to God. He's got bigger issues in this world than my piddly stuff. So I didn't like taking things to God. And if I did, it meant I failed, which just made me angry. So I just kind of compiled.
Mm.
So I had to trust that he gave me my partner, the specific partner he gave me for a reason. And I had to trust it. When he was nudging me, there was a reason for it.
Mm. How has faith reshaped your life?
You know, I have conversations with Pastor Tim probably once a year where I go, why am I still dealing with the same junk? And those are my issues that I'm just going to always deal with. And I've accepted that.
Mm.
So faith has taught me to slow down,
Mm.
keep my mouth quiet, listen to what's going on,
Mm.
pray really hard, and wait and see what happens. So I don't snap off angrily. I try not to.
Yeah.
Um, we hear about it every Sunday, when you leave, how long does it take you to leave church before you're sitting at the other driver that's going off that just cuts you off? And I always laugh because, we live a couple miles from here. And
Yeah.
there's a pretty good chance somebody's going to offend me between here and there. It's like, I just left church. It's like, really? It's taught me to slow down and listen more.
Mm.
Listen to what he has to say and trust when he nudges me. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have got me up here for nothing.
Mm.
Now I'm leading my own small group.
Mm.
This is not my first small group that I'm leading, but I am leading one here now. And I'm still trying to do more
Yeah.
when the call is made. And I still struggle with not wanting to. My sinful thing is my time, and I want to keep it
Mm.
to myself and selfishness. But I'm getting better at listening to when he's nudging me. There's a reason, and I try to catch up with that.
Mm. Your small group, what are you doing in your small group? What is it targeting?
Right now, we have been meeting for 2 years, I think. It's a veterans group.
Yep.
There's 3 of us, and talking to the pastors, we have a huge need for more men's groups apparently in this church. We have 41 different small groups, I believe, and there's only, I think, 2 men's groups.
Oh, wow.
So we're expanding ours to just another men's group. When we started as the veterans group, there's a lot of veterans issues in this community.
Mm.
My thing was, I want to find a team
Yeah.
that could address some of these. And I've kind of waited 2 years. That's not the way God wants me to run this. So I asked the guys that are in my group, hey, what do we think about opening this up to just more guys?
Mm.
So we, like most groups, we have our readings that we're doing. We talk about, we generally have a veterans discussion.
Yep.
What's going on? What do we need?
Yeah.
Do we know somebody in crisis? And then it's the standard small group. What are we reading? What are your thoughts? What are our prayers for this week?
You mentioned prayer a couple times. What is some moments that you've had throughout your life where you find yourself going to prayer for?
Well, that's changed as I've gotten older. It was hard for me to overcome I'm not going to bother God with this.
Mm.
It was really hard for me to overcome that. The older I get, I still don't take much of my stuff to him, but I know plenty of people that need prayer.
Mm.
And so I try to remember everybody that I know is in trouble or just needs prayer. um, and I bring that forward.
Mm,
There are times where I will ask for help when I feel one of my own demons coming on, and I can register it, and then I will stop and pray and say,
mm,
okay, I need help here. I need some protection.
mm,
But yeah, I've been doing it a little while, and I'm still struggling with not wanting to bother him with it.
mm. It's a really great piece of advice on prayer for somebody who maybe doesn't pray as often, or maybe someone who's never really prayed at all. What do you usually do? And what would you tell them for prayer? Because what we hear a lot of times is it has to be this big, complicated,
Right?
crazy,
Hmm.
perfectly worded thing.
Yep.
What is it really, and what is it to you?
It's a private conversation between me and God. Started out as formal, and I know the Bible tells us to pray that way, but if you're kind of BSing your way through it, then what's the point? So I have the boxes that I check off, but it's I just have a conversation. Especially when I feel like, okay, I need to pray right now.
Mm,
I don't go through the big formal thing. It's like,
yeah.
okay, God, this is going on. I need this addressed, or the church needs this addressed. This just happened. Somebody's sick.
Mm,
I need to pray about this right now.
mm,
And it's like talking to you.
yeah.
It's just like talking to a friend. I have found it for me, it's once I started praying like that, it got easier for me to do it more frequently throughout the day.
Yeah, that's really good. Doesn't have to be this whole big thing where you have to pause everything you're doing.
All right.
Mm,
Well, and my job allows, I mean, I work by myself. I mean, pretty much my entire life, I've worked by myself. So I have all kinds of time to have conversations with God, which is awesome.
mm,
Um, and I live in Maine, and I drive around this state for a living. So I get to see his creation.
mm.
Um, and I have a lot of conversations with him now, just, for the needs of this community,
Yeah.
and one, I just love what he's created here in Maine.
I have a Bible here. What does this book mean to you now compared to when you first came to faith?
Probably a lot of people would think when you first come to faith, it's a book of rules.
Mm,
I didn't so much as I just took it as this is the stuff I'm behind. I'm married to a woman who was a Christian, and I'm 20, whatever, 7, 8 years old at the time.
yep.
I have a lot to make up for. It was information that I needed. How much of what I've heard is real? How
Yeah.
much of it is way off the mark? Now it's the answers I need to my daily living. Kind of similar to when I'm talking to God and when I'm reading my Bible. He knows he has my attention. I have his attention, and yeah, it's just different now.
Mm,
I don't feel it is. I don't. While I still learn something every time I pick up the Bible, I don't feel it's as educational for me now as I'm not sure what the word connection
mm.
as my connection with God.
So making your relationship with God personal really matters. It's something that you have really worked towards over the last few years, just from this conversation we've had so far. Um, what were some key moments that you realized that God doesn't have to be the same exact thing for everybody, and that He is personable to every individual?
We started doing LTGs at the church 10 years ago, maybe,
Okay.
and I was in a couple of those.
What was it? What's an LTG? Really quick.
Life transformation groups, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
They were small groups,
All right. Small group.
but at the time they were called LTGs.
Okay.
We had like a pamphlet, and we had, so we 4 or 5 guys,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your group was. We had assigned readings, and you know, there were accountability. Did you do your readings? Did what prayers do we need? Did you sin this week? Are you being honest? They were accountability groups, really.
Okay.
But I would say they were more intense accountability groups than just a small group.
Okay.
And leading or being a part of one of those, it still amazes me when we're doing the same reading, the different things that people will get out of it. You and I are going to read the same passage, and we're going to come away with something different.
Yeah.
And the only way that's possible is when you realize, okay, well, God and I's relationship is different than Justin and God's relationship. He knows me better than anybody else. He knows when I'm kidding myself, when I'm kidding others. He knows when I'm happy and I'm doing everything right. He knows. So I would say probably those were when it really dawned on me that a relationship with God is different for everybody. Is when we read the same exact words and have very different takeaways from it.
I'm a small group leader for our young adults group that we have here. One of them. What is something, maybe a piece of advice from having your small group, being kind of the leader of that? What is a piece of advice you could give me to be a good leader in a small group setting?
I learned most of my lessons, I think, when I was in a small group with Pastor Mike. Just being the talker isn't leading the group. Sometimes it's not talking. It's letting the guys lead. And sometimes it takes a nudge.
Yeah.
And I remember there was times where Pastor Mike would be like, okay, Brian, what did you learn this week? And so I would go. But that would probably be the strongest thing I would say is listen and encourage others to speak, and let the group run itself, so that you're not leading it in your direction. God's leading it in his direction. And sometimes it just means sitting back and letting that happen.
What has your relationship been with Mossberg Church over the years?
I love this church. It's just always been awesome. I've met so many incredible people through this church. We were kidding around before. I met your dad before he started Mossberg.
Yeah.
And I still to this day, I'll say, remember when you abandoned me? I needed you and you just left. But he came back. God brought him back, and we started. And Ben and Catherine's. I remember holding one of the twins in the service because Catherine's got two of them. Give me one of them, and I'd hold one of them during the service. And now I'm watching those kids, you kids, lead teams, leading podcasts, leading the church. And one, I feel old. But it's just amazing. I've just met so many amazing people through this church that I wouldn't have met probably before that. Love both my pastors. My connection with them is great. I know I can walk through that door at any given time, and they'll set aside what they're doing and answer my question. Even if it's the same question I've asked him 10 times, he still does it. And it's helped me come out of my shell. I'm a pretty private person. As many people as come to this church, I still don't have I know a ton of people, but that's not a ton of people compared to what some of the other people know. So I come out of my shell a lot. So I'm leading my own groups, and I'm up here with you guys today. So it's taught me a lot. It's been a wild ride between the different places we've been in. And, we were talking earlier about all the churches that are small.
Yeah.
This church has exploded. This church grows in the summertime when everybody leaves church for the summer because they'd rather be this church keeps growing. This church grew when we were in a tent that was raining on us. That's something special and God-led. There's no denying that this is a God-led church, because we wouldn't continue to grow like this if we weren't.
What is something you could tell someone who's maybe sitting on the other side of that screen there, who usually doesn't go to church, and maybe because it might be for reasons that you've talked about There's too many people. It's a little overwhelming. You don't quite understand why people are doing it and what's going on. What is something you could tell them to just get up and, hey, let's go today. Let's make this that week I finally actually go.
I know a lot of people that get overwhelmed with people. Great. Hey, we have a Saturday service now that there's only about 50 people at. It's perfect. Good time for you to break in, and nobody's going to bother you.
Yep.
The other thing I get asked a lot is why coming to church is important for them. And I don't remember which one of the pastors told me, but a long time ago, they said, sometimes it's not about what you get out of the church. It's what someone's going to get out of seeing you at the church. And so, maybe there's people in your life that you are praying for, and they need help, and they're waiting to see what you're going to do. So if you come to church and you step up, how is that going to affect other people's lives? Putting it off isn't helping you or them.
You're 55.
Yeah.
What is something you would tell yourself, but your younger self? What would you tell your younger self looking
Get over
back?
yourself. You're not the center of the universe. Looking at how I treated people, or, just the rebel child that I was growing up. Even if I couldn't go back and, bring God into my life earlier, just getting over myself would have helped that guy a lot. That would probably be my first thing. And then, there's no real place that I could say God could have entered my life then, because I just didn't have the influence. I think a lot about different times where how it could have happened earlier, and I just don't see it. I mean, I'm sure God was talking to me somehow, but I wasn't listening. I just didn't have that influence in my life. So, but just to speak to my younger self, look at other people. What can you do for other people? Stop being so self-minded.
I really want to drive this point home before we end.
Okay.
How we can make our relationship with God personable. How do you find that your relationship with Jesus is on the day-to-day?
I get up in the morning and I start with my Bible. And that has been, I love to read, so it should be an easy thing. There's always multiple Bible books on my stands.
Yep.
I've had to force myself to make sure I do that first. And then it gets me in the framework, because that generally, a lot of times when I pick up my Bible and I start reading, I don't even finish what I'm reading, because I jump into prayer and go, ooh, you know what? While we're talking, let's talk about this. So my day-to-day, I mean, it's easy. It's easy because I just treat him like he's right there with me. When there's a big issue, I have a certain place that I go on a mountain when I go up and I have my hard conversations. Those are when I'm really struggling with where God's sending me. I don't want to go, and I go up there and we have the discussion. I always lose, but that's where I got to go to do it. But for the big ones, but day to day, it's just like talking to your friend. If you keep it that easy, it just gets easier. The more you talk to people, the easier it gets to talk to them. So why would God be any different? Especially since once you realize he only wants the best for you, and he's going to use you somehow in somebody else's life, be attentive. Be open. Be ready to do it. I'm attentive and open. Ready to jump. I'm still working on.
Yeah. You're an outdoorsman.
I am.
Yep. What got you into hunting?
So when I was growing up, I grew up in a hunting family. But way back in the 80s, the state of Maine did not have very many deer. So I would go out with my dad and his brothers and freeze to death and not see any deer. I was like, this is stupid. So shortly thereafter, I got into sports and girlfriends and stuff like that. And so I didn't do any of that stuff. When I went into the Army, This is one of my biggest regrets, is not being an outdoorsman while I was in the Army, because I've been in some pretty amazing states
Mm.
to do that stuff.
Mm.
But when Emily moved me back here,
Yeah.
that was it. I got back in with my father and his brothers, my grandfather. One of the last memories of my grandfather before he passed away from cancer right after Emily and I got married.
Mm.
But shortly before that was a fishing trip down the Androscoggin River with
Mm.
him, which turned into an adventure. They tipped the boat over, and he's fighting cancer and everything, and we just tipped him over in the middle of the river with a boat. Yeah, it was a good time. But it was a memory that I have. One of my father's brothers got me into bow hunting, and I'm just so at peace
Mm.
out there. There are days that I go out there to deal with PTSD issues.
Mm.
There are days I go out there to deal with work issues. There are days I go out there to be with God.
Yeah.
I just want to be out there all the time.
Mm.
Maine has so much to offer to help you slow down and just look and listen. And
Mm.
I just love it.
Brian, thank you so much for coming on
You're
the
welcome.
So What's the Point podcast. Very glad that you could come and have a conversation just about life and growth in faith and listening to God. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell for me so you never miss an episode. That'd be awesome. And we'll see you next time.